everyone, today we're going to take a look at the first boss in Sanctum of Domination on heroic difficulty called the Tarragrue. Before we reach the Tarrague, there are 4 mini-bosses in the surrounding area weaved in with trash. Each one spawns an anima power for your raiders to take into the boss fight. These powers range in quality, with a few being extremely useful for the boss mechanics and a few making the fight even harder for your allies. You can find the full list of the abilities at mythictrap.com. Also, don't worry, if you think you chose the wrong power, you can reset your powers at the boss room entrance, then go back to the anima power to decide again. The fight is broken down into 2 phases, with the first phase being where most of the action happens. During this phase, the Tarragrue casts an ability called Chains of Eternity. This applies an 8-second debuff to a player indicated to others by a large blue arrow over the player's head. Upon expiration, a hook flies out from the Tarragrue to the target and hits the first player it touches. This stuns the player and grips them to their death right after. The only way to avoid the grips player's death is to have the player immune or break the stun. The main thing to look out for is that the chain does not hit an unintended target, as it is very easy to miss, especially by the melee brains. The next ability to watch out for is a spread mechanic called Predator's Howl. This applies a dispellable fear zone debuff around several players. If another player stands in the zone, they will get feared. The fear ticks once every 3 seconds, but does not tick on application. You can pre-spread for this ability, and if you're in an ally circle, you need to immediately move out. Make sure the healers are dispelling this mechanic quickly. Master Spell and Tremor Totem are great counter spells for this. On Heroic and above throughout phase 1, the boss also casts Remnant of Forgotten Torments. This is an AoE circle that spawns in the room with 5 charges that must be soaked. Each unsoaked charge buffs the boss, and each soaked charge applies a debuff on the player, which lasts for 1.5 minutes. There are 3 different debuffs. The first debuff, Mordragar's Echoes, makes players take 10% increased magic damage per stack. For each unsoaked stack, the boss will deal 10% increased magic damage instead. The second debuff behaves similarly but affects physical damage instead of magical damage. The last debuff, Soulforge Heat, gives players a dot, dealing fire damage every 5 seconds. If left unsoaked, the Remnant Circle pulses rate-wide damage instead. It's important that the Remnant Circles are not left up for too long. Tanks take almost no magic damage in this fight, so it makes sense for them to soak the magic damage increase. Now, as for tanks, you will be taunt swapping on Overpower. This stuns the active tank and gives them 200% physical damage taken increase. As usual, the tanks have an incredibly hard mechanic here. The boss every now and then gets an enrage called Fury of the Ages, increasing the boss's damage and haste by 25%. Hunters and druids should be soothing this effect immediately. On top of keeping the tanks healthy and dispelling, the healers need to watch out for Grasp of Death, which is a nasty 40-second dot that can become particularly painful when combined with Torment stacks or Fury of the Ages. Once the boss reaches 100 energy, it casts Hungering Mist. This starts a dance where you have to find and run to a safe spot 3 times. The bad spots are covered in darkness, making the safe spot easy to find. Roars and sprints are recommended here, but not required. The short second phase starts at 10% after the boss casts the Jailer's Gaze. The raid loses their anima powers, and the boss starts dealing 500% increased damage done. When the boss is in this phase, it stops using any other abilities and just follows and one-shots its targets. You can spend quite a long time here if your tank knows how to kite. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you have feedback, please let me know in the comments, and I will try my best to improve. If you'd like to check out the bosses in text format with visuals, head over to mythictrap.com. All of the bosses are on there for you, and it's really well explained.